So we are now moving to the next part on the application form design and intervention logic. So basically, in this with this section, we'll try to explain how to translate properly the strategic description of your project, so what you have basically in the section C, into clear and relevant operational activities in your work plan, so in the section D. So basically, we'll try to give you some tips to design a good work plan and a good intervention logic. So in terms of overall project design, where we'd like to draw your attention first is on the fact that there needs to be a good and coherent match between the section D and the section C of your application form. So meaning between the strategic description you make of your innovative solution and your work plan and different activities. Any major discrepancies between these two, like for instance, a core element of the proposed solution that is presented in section C, but that would not be very well or concretely reflected in the work plan, would be considered as a major shortcoming of your application. An important aspect to consider as well is that all your work plan elements must be logically structured, meaning that you have to constantly question whether there is a coherent and logical link between all of them. So you should find a coherent link between your objectives that you set at the very beginning, the structure of the different work packages, and your expected output and results. Likewise, the logic chain between your work package, activities, deliverable, and outputs must be relevant to, at the end of the day, reach your project objective. It must be clear as well how your project activities and deliverables will lead to the achievement of your output and results. So we should really understand how each of your activity will actually lead to your final results. There must be as well a clear interrelation between your different work packages. We want to see integration between all your different project elements. So if you have a standalone work package, for instance, that is not very well connected to the other work packages, or where we can't really see what's the connection with the other activity of the project, that's not a good sign. And finally, you're advised to really well identify each of your project elements. A result is a result, it's a change in your local situation. It's really different from your project outputs and activities, so make sure that each element is not duplicating the other one and that they are all clearly identified. In terms of drafting style, here you have to find and ensure a right balance between being clear and concise, but also sufficiently detailed for an external reader to have a good understanding of clearly what will be implemented in your project and how it will be done. Another key of our recommendations is to foresee and include explicitly in your work plan cross-references. You know that your work plan is somehow an artificial split of your project ID. So with these different cross-references, we really expect you to explain us what's the connection and interconnection between the different activities, between the interlinked work plan and so on. So these cross-references explicitly put in your description will be really helpful. Another crucial aspect to think about when designing your work plan is to plan sufficient and relevant deliverables. For us, the deliverables are really the intermediary steps composing an activity. So it's only with this well-identified deliverable that it will be for us to understand the how of your project, how the activity will be concretely and operationally implemented. And without these clear deliverables, only with a good, even good activities description, we remain really at the conceptual level and we miss these concrete and tangible technical steps according to which we'll manage to deliver your activity. Then another piece of advice is to make sure that your output and results really captures the indicators that you identified for your output and results really captures the full scope of the project. So the different dimensions of your proposed solution. We are looking for integrated project. Probably your project idea is a complex one with different aspects. All these aspects must be somehow captured and measured by your different indicators. Finally, if you are planning investment, these are often key dimension of the concrete and place-based experimentation that are innovative actions projects, but still they should not be taken for granted, meaning that you really have to demonstrate that the need for this investment is justified, and only they will be only eligible if we have a proper understanding that they are necessary for the achievement of your project objective and result, and if they are aligned with your project objectives. Regarding now the project timeline and feasibility. The key notion here to keep in mind is really to demonstrate in your proposal that your project is realistic. So that means that you have sufficiently anticipated the main issues, the main risks, the main contingencies. So how to do so? Well, first, you need to make sure that your timeline appears realistic. What does it mean? It implies that you need to pay attention. There is a logical time sequence between the different project elements. You have, for sure, interconnected activities, work packages that rely on each other. Well, the articulation between all these elements must be clear in terms of timeline. Include as well contingency, especially for investment. You know that investment implementation can be risky, can be subject to delays, so do not hesitate to include buffer periods to make sure that you avoid major risk of delays during your implementation. And finally, sufficiently anticipate the time for procedures when it's needed. If you need time for procurement procedures, if you need time for permitting procedure, then you need to anticipate them in your work plan, but also to put them clearly so that we can understand that you have effectively taken these permitting procedures into account in your time plan. Then your time plan must also be clear in terms of time sequence and duration, so meaning we should have a clear understanding of how your activities will be implemented in time. And for this, the use of deliverables is actually really useful because they are intermediary steps, meaning they provide intermediary dates. So it's then easy for us to understand how such activity will be implemented in time. In case the information given by the deliverable are not sufficient, feel free to use as well the description of your activity or description of your deliverable to explain more clearly what will be the time sequence and how this will be implemented in time. A realistic time plan is not only about planning sufficient time for project implementation, but it's also planning sufficient time for the operation of the solution as such. If your project is about delivering a building, well, the delivery of the building is not the whole solution. What we want is to test innovative solutions, so the full solution, which is the delivery of your building, plus the activities that are hosted there, and that makes the solution innovative. So please always make sure that the operation of your solution is integrated in your time plan as well. And you should anticipate as well the time for your data collection and the final evaluation of your solution. In addition, we recommend you to carefully work on your risk management section, so section G of the application form. It's one of the last sections, but still very important that should be carefully worked on. You are requested there to map the different risks that your project could face. And such anticipation of the risk is actually part of the demonstration of the readiness of your project. And that really contributes to the overall quality of your project. So in that extent, it's strongly recommended that you define this project risk well and that you avoid identifying risks that would be really vague, generic, standards that could be applicable to any project. What we want to see here is that you have really well identified the risks that will be applicable to your project, so depending on its very nature, depending on its context. And always question as well if you consider that the associated mitigating actions are relevant and convincing according to you. Now, in case you plan some investments in your project, which are riskier by nature than any other type of activity because they need some authorization, they have technical constraints, risk of delays, financial commitments, and so on. Well, please make sure that all these technical, administrative, legal requirements are anticipated on your side and presented in your application form to demonstrate that somehow you have anticipated these constraints. And be clear as well in terms of information providing on who will be the owner of the investment, what will be the financial durability of the project, what will be the maintenance condition, and so on. Now, final tips on the work plan regarding what to do with your project partners and the wider group of stakeholders, how their involvement should be reflected in the work plan. For what concerns the project partners, we really encourage you to have explicitly described in the core of your activities who will be the partner involved or the partners responsible for delivering this activity. It will be really useful for us to understand who will do what and to see it explicitly in your descriptions, at least at activity level, even better if you go until the level of deliverables or outputs. And for what concerns the wider group of stakeholders, so we all know that they are an important part for the successful delivery of the project. They are probably very well described in the section C of your application form, but still, we need to see concretely how you plan to involve them in your project through the work plan. So we really expect to see in your different work packages what will be the effective mechanism that you will put in place to make sure that these stakeholders will be concretely involved in the project. So it can be dedicated activities, dedicated mechanism, but this should be really explicit in your different activities. Now, before leaving the floor for the question and answer, I would invite you to join Slido and answer this quick question about deliverables. What are, according to you, deliverables in innovative actions intervention logic? There can be more than one question, one answer. Kathleen, what does it say?
So, I think just giving some time for people to answer. For now, people are saying that, well, it's an intermediary step of a project activity, but that a deliverable could also be project investments, for example. These are the two most popular answers.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. So this is partly correct. Indeed, as we said, deliverables are intermediary steps of a project activity, really the step which is decomposing the delivery of an activity. It is not in investment. In investment will always be a final product and output of the project. This is neither a project result, because we know that the result is the change that appears in your local context as a result of your project. And it's not either a key and final products from the project, because these are the outputs. So the correct answer is the intermediary step of a project activity. And it can be as well considered as a side product of the project, meaning it's not a final product, final output, but it's really a side product of a project that can lead to the delivery of the overall activity and to help to reach your project output and results. Thank you, Kathleen. I guess now the floor is now open to the question about this specific aspect of application form and intervention logic. Kathleen, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions on the intervention logic, the results, the deliverable, investment, etc. So we'll take them one by one. So talking about result indicators. So I don't see any result indicators relevant for my project in the terms of reference. Do I need to use them, or can I compose my own list of indicators? And then second question, how detailed do they need to be? Do I need to specify, for example, the number of jobs that will be created with my project?
Maybe I can try to answer this one. So let me answer in the following way. First of all, definitely you are expected and you can compose your own list of indicators, because naturally you will not find an exhaustive list on the list of predefined indicators. So even using some of the indicators that are predefined in terms of reference, you need to add your own indicators always. However, we really invite you to check the result indicators that you see in the terms of reference the question, if you don't see any, it's also related a bit to, is your project in line of the call topic? So of course it can happen. We can imagine a situation when indeed your project is so specific that you will not be able to find any relevant result indicator there. But try to carefully analyze that, because that might also lead to asking yourself a question: is then my project relevant to the call topic? Because maybe I'm working on aspect that is not in line with the theme, with the topic of the call. And how specific you need to be. You might maybe remember that we mentioned that we are also looking into having results of a sufficient scale. So indeed, it will be good to know how many jobs you're trying to create. Are we talking about 5 jobs as a result of your project implementation? Or we are talking about 50 or maybe 500? So yes, try to be specific, try to be realistic, of course, but try to be specific so we will better understand also from the perspective of value for money, what are you indeed planning to do and how effectively you will use the 5 million ERDF budget allocated for your project.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of questions on the topic of the investment, so maybe we can take those now. So the first question is quite easy. Can an investment be located outside of the project area? So maybe we can take this one first and then...
Yeah, thank you. Well, so we are looking really for place-based project with an impact on the local areas. We are looking for local project with an impact on the local environment. So in principle, the investment should be located on the local areas. This is strongly advised for the coherence of your project.
And can you explain a bit more how detailed the investment needs to be? Because it might be hard at the start of the project to know all the details, for example, the furniture that you would like to put in your investment. So how detailed does it have to be?
Well, it's fully understandable that at the stage of the application, you don't have all the details on all the equipment that will be necessary or all the permitting stuff that will be necessary for your investment. So at the application stage, you can remain quite generic in the description of what you need, but still we need to understand that at least you have mapped what could be the most important documentation, administrative requirements, that you have an idea of the sustainability, financially speaking, of your investment after the project, of the maintenance condition and of the ownership condition. So these are the basic requirements that still we need to see in your application form, it is understandable that some of the detail could be defined a bit further at a later stage.
And still on the investment, is it mandatory that the main urban authority owns the investment of the project?
It's not mandatory that the main urban authority owns the investment. What is mandatory is that the investment are owned by the project partners. So at least one of the project partners, main urban authority or any other delivery partner, has to be the owner of this investment. And this investment must also remain within the ownership of the partnership for up to 5 years after the closure of the project. That's something to be kept in mind as well.
Thank you very much. I have 2 questions on deliverables now that we can maybe take together. The first one, are deliverables compulsory in the work plan? And the second one is, what is a typical deliverable? Could you give an example to clearly understand what we're talking about?
Yeah, so deliverables are compulsory in the way that you need for each activity to at least provide 1 deliverable, and you can provide up to 3 deliverables per activity. Our main recommendation, of course, whenever it's relevant and justified for your activity, but it's to use these 3 deliverables to describe your activity, because it's really important to describe how concretely and operationally speaking your activity will be carried out. So it's not compulsory to have all of those 3 deliverables per activity, but strongly recommended to provide the best level of details. And to give you some example of what deliverable could be, so we said it's an intermediary step. So for instance, if your activity is the delivery of an investment, you could have step 1, the permitting procedures. Step 2, everything related to the procurement. You could have also another step which would be maybe related to the involvement of the different stakeholders of the area to map their needs regarding this investment and so on. So this is a kind of intermediary steps that will be necessary to deliver your activities, but which are not the end product and final product, which in this case will be the delivery of the investment.
And let me maybe add here also some comments, because it's quite an important question, and I'm really happy that it was asked. So let's take an example that you're planning to create a new park. You're building a new park, and often we see in the application form this approach that the activity is about creating a new park. And then we only have output, a park is ready. It will take us 2 years, and it will cost 500,000. And that's it. That's the level of details we see. So of course it's not enough, because we are interested in, okay, so what exactly will happen during these 2 years? And how are you planning to spend this 500,000 or 1 million or 2 million? So deliverables here are extremely useful. So let's imagine that you will have some sort of co-creation process first with the local community. So you will be designing the concept together. So that will be your first deliverable, and it will take you a couple of months. So we already see how you will be spending your first couple of months working on this park, working with the local community, discussing together, working with architects, in a participatory process, creating the concept of the park. Then the next stage will be preparing exact design and all the plans, and obtaining building permits, and preparing technical documentation, and it will take you several months. So we already know what you will be working during the next several months and what will be the next deliverable. And then let's imagine that you will have a grand opening, and you will invite everyone from the local neighborhood, and that there will be a great opening celebration of what you achieved together. So this way will allow us to understand better what exactly you're working on, what the budget is dedicated to, so we don't have this kind of very vague gap of 1 year, of 2 years, not really knowing what you're working on and what can be the cost structure there. So deliverables are really very useful and very important for us. So make sure that you really use them. So the person that will be reading and assessing your project proposal will be properly able to understand what are your steps and understand the logic of it. And there, again, you will not have these kind of gaps that will leave us a bit doubting what is exactly happening during the project implementation.
Thank you very much. Let's see if we have more on the intervention logic application form. Otherwise, I guess we can move on to the next section, but keep them coming, and we can also come back at the end to we'll have a Q&A on any other topics that still needs to be tackled.